There's a specific kind of stillness that comes late at night. The house is quiet. Everyone else is asleep, or at least somewhere else. And somewhere between putting your phone down and picking it back up, something shifts inside you. Not loudly, quietly, like a door opening in a room you forgot existed. Suddenly, you want to change everything. You start thinking about the gym routine you keep meaning to start, the apology you owe someone, the career that makes more sense than the one you're living. The version of yourself that reads, that saves money, that wakes up with purpose. You open a notes app, you search something, you make a mental list so serious it almost feels like a contract. And for maybe 20, 30 minutes, you believe it completely. Then you fall asleep, and in the morning, most of it dissolves. People who have witnessed this pattern from the outside often chalk it up to avoidance. Procrastination dressed up as ambition. You just can't sleep, so your brain is spinning. And maybe the kindest thing someone said is that it's a phase, or that you need a journal, or that you should just go to therapy already. None of those responses are wrong exactly, but they all miss what's actually happening, because the person lying awake at midnight rewriting their life isn't avoiding their future. They're finally, briefly, able to see it. What we're actually talking about is a specific psychological state, one that doesn't have a clean name in common language, but is well documented in behavioral science. It has to do with the relationship between the prefrontal cortex and the default mode network, with emotional regulation cycles, and with something researchers call psychological distance. And the reason it happens at night, specifically, is not arbitrary. It's almost architecturally precise. Here's what's going on inside the brain. During the day, the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for executive function, social monitoring, and risk evaluation, is running almost constantly. Every interaction, every task, every moment of being perceived by other people activates it. And while that's necessary for functioning in the world, it's also, quietly, suppressive. It narrows your thinking. It keeps you inside the probable, the safe, the already decided. During the day, you are largely living inside a set of constraints your brain has pre-approved. At night, that system begins to downregulate. The social world goes offline. There's no one to perform for, no immediate consequence to calculate. And into that space, the default mode network, the brain's internal narrator, the part that imagines futures and constructs identity, begins to run more freely. You stop thinking about what you have to do and start feeling what you actually want. It's not that the nighttime thoughts are more irrational. In some ways, they are more honest. There's also something happening with cortisol. Throughout the day, cortisol, the stress hormone, influences how we prioritize. It keeps us focused on what's immediate and threatening. As it drops in the evening, the brain's relationship to time changes. Things that felt far away, goals, ideals, the person you might eventually become, suddenly feel closer. More real, more urgent. Researchers studying what they call temporal self-appraisal have found that people assess themselves more expansively when they feel removed from the pressure of right now. Night creates that removal, almost automatically. But there's a deeper layer here, and it has less to do with brain chemistry and more to do with history. For many people, the daytime, for most of their life, has been reactive. School, then work, then obligations, then the needs of other people. The private self, the self that has desires and direction and a specific kind of longing, learned to wait. Not because it was lazy or unserious, because there was no room. The night became the only space that reliably belonged to it. And so the night became associated with possibility, not as a deliberate choice, but as a learned refuge. The brain didn't decide this. The body did over years. That pattern is worth understanding without judgment, because a lot of people carry shame around it. They feel like night planning is evidence of some deeper dysfunction, that if they were really serious, they would act during business hours, in well-lit rooms, with a planner and a schedule. But seriousness and schedule are not the same thing. Some people process clarity slowly. Some people need silence before they can hear themselves. Neither of those is a character flaw. They're adaptive responses to environments that didn't always leave room for self-reflection at convenient times. And here's the part that surprises people when they sit with it. The fact that most of those late-night plans don't survive the morning isn't only failure. It's also information. What does survive? What idea was still there the next day and the day after? What kept coming back night after night in slightly different forms? Because repetition is the brain's way of flagging importance. Most of the lists dissolve because they were responses to anxiety, not to genuine desire. But underneath them usually is something smaller and more specific, a real want, not an aspirational one, that the nighttime keeps circling back to. That's the thing worth paying attention to. If you recognize yourself in any of this, you are not broken. You are not someone who only talks themselves into things at midnight and can't follow through. You are someone whose internal life needed a quieter container to show up in, and who found one even if the timing isn't ideal. That's not avoidance. That's adaptation. The late-night version of you isn't delusional. It's just finally alone enough to be honest. And if this is the kind of thing you find yourself returning to, questions about why you are the way you are, why certain patterns keep showing up, what your particular psychology is actually built on, there's more here worth exploring. The next layer usually goes somewhere unexpected. Sonnet 4.6.